Learning to control your relationships in Warhammer 3 can determine whether you have a whole bunch of allies or a whole bunch of enemies, which can ultimately decide the success or failure of your campaign. Okay, a few basic things first of all. Campaigns are made up of major and minor factions. Major factions being the ones with legendary lords, the ones we can play as ourselves in campaigns. All of these in this Empire Bretonia area. And then there's all of these factions, the minor factions, the little guys, that are pretty much there to either be destroyed, confederated, or vassalized by the major factions. So these are pretty much just food for these, and sadly for those minor factions, they'll pretty much all be gone by turn 50 to 100. So if you look at any of your campaigns that have gone on for a bit, you'll notice that it's only Legendary Lord major factions that are still going. Ikit Claw of the Skaven here, Clan Angren still going, Scrag still going, Archon making some headway there, Crooked Moon over here, Von Karstein's doing pretty well for themselves, Archaon bringing in the end times through the Empire. Ulthuan, the High Elf Donut, is a pretty good simple example of this. It will 9 times out of 10 be controlled by the 3 strong Legendary Lord High Elf factions. Etain down south there, Ivres over here, and Avalorn in the center. These 3 start here, and they will eventually control all of it. Although Nakari is over here for Slaanesh, so there is 4 Legendary Lords on this island. So all these other factions like Calador here, or these Dark Elf Cult of Excess, they're pretty much 100% guaranteed to all be dead by like turn 50 to 100. And so at least from an ally perspective, they're kind of not worth bothering with because they're gonna be dead soon anyway and likely not that helpful to you. So 9 times out of 10, it's fairly safe to predict that those 3 major High Elf factions here are going to dominate. But this is Total War, anything can happen. As you can see, Marathi of the Dark Elves has taken over most of it here, with a little bit to Nakari of Slaanesh in the north, but it's pretty much always predictable that the minor factions will die. Although there is this slightly newer option in campaign now for minor faction potential, where you can make them potentially not die off so easily. But generally speaking, major factions will dominate, so that's the first thing to keep in mind. The next thing to be aware of is whether you're playing as a good guy kind of faction or a bad guy kind of faction. Because, loosely speaking, good guy factions are more likely to ally with other good guy factions and go to war with bad guy factions, and vice versa for the bad guys. Take Bretonia for example. Despite being French, they're actually good guys, believe it or not. But the factions that they're less likely to go to war with early on is these other Bretonian factions here. Maybe Marienburg over here, an Empire faction. Karl Franz, also of the Empire. Some more minor Empire factions up here. So we can loosely predict that we don't have to worry about going to war with these factions. But all these little more bad guy factions, like the Greenskins, like the Vampire Counts, Musalon down here. You've got Heinrich Kemmler, Vampire Counts again over here. These factions are more of a threat to you as the good guy Bretonians. Norskins in the north, Shadow Legion here often comes down to get Bretonia. So knowing the good guys and bad guys around you and which one you are, you can kind of predict which factions you might need to worry about from what direction. So these Empire factions over here, we don't need to worry about them. These Bretonian factions will be fine with us most likely. But this is very loosely speaking. Sometimes good guys go after good guys and bad guys after bad guys, but there's generally a bit of a preference there. With bad guys, it may be even a little bit more loose. Let's take Archaon here, for example. We've got Tamakan just to our south over here. He's a bad guy as well, and he could well be an ally, but he could also just as easily be an enemy. So it's a little bit less predictable with the bad guy factions, but this means you've potentially got more enemies that could come after you, but you've also maybe got more allies as well. Another major faction here, Arbel, he could be an ally or an enemy. The only definite enemy in this region is probably Boris of Kislev, because he's a Boris of Kislev, which is a good guy faction, so he will definitely be an enemy at some point if he's not destroyed by somebody else. So pay attention to the good guy bad guy dynamic, because there is a bit of it at play here. Although, like I say, pretty loose, and some factions are a bit ambiguous. Tomb Kings, for example, are they good guys, are they bad guys? Depends who you ask. High Elves, are they good guys or are they bad guys? Well, they're obviously bad guys. I don't care what you say, shut up. And the last thing that comes into play with allies and enemies is your race. Or should I say faction, because everyone's a massive racist in the Warhammer world, so you're more likely to be friends with your own people. So with all that in mind, let's do a few quick examples of how to read an area for allies and enemies. So first one, let's do Gorok of the Lizardmen, a good guy faction. First of all, down south we can see Lord Skrok of the Skaven, a bad guy faction, so big potential enemy there, one that could get strong, so we'll want to try and take him out early. Down south a bit further, we've got Tehenuin, another Lizardmen, so same race, another good guy faction, potential ally. Over here, a good example of unpredictability though, this is a Dwarf faction, generally good guys right, but I've come to experience in this campaign that these Dwarves will give you problems as Gorok, so they might actually be an enemy for you. Over here, we've got the Vampire Coast, another bad guy faction, so we've got to watch out for them. Over here, Alberic, Bretonia, good guy faction, could be an ally. Marcus Wolfheart of the Empire, could be an ally. Yuan Bo of Cathay, another good guy faction, potential ally. Skulltaker here, possibly the biggest threat in this area. He can be an incredibly dangerous legendary lord, so good to take him out early. We've also got Rakarth of the Dark Elves over here. So is Gorrock. I know I've got Skaven to the south, Khorne to the north, Vampire Coast to the east, and Dark Elves to the west. These are all the bad guy factions and the major factions that I'm going to need to worry about. Any other bad guy factions that are around are still a bit of a threat, but not as much as those major ones. And the only fellow quote-unquote good guy factions that are worth trying to make allies with are those 4 major ones. Now, of course, all this is easy to say and easy to see as an experienced player, but if you're new to the game, this might be a little bit more of a struggle. You're not going to know your banners necessarily, which faction is which ones are major and minor, which ones have legendary lords, which don't, which ones are good or bad.
Elves are bad.
So it is, of course, going to take a little bit of time to learn all those things. But try to get to know them, to understand them, and it's going to help to know which direction to look for allies and enemies. A couple of other quick examples. Let's take Karak Kadrin here, the Dwarfs. They've got Greenskins, major faction to the north. Azag, he can be a potential threat. You've also got the Crooked Moon to the south, another Greenskins potential major threat. Near your start position, you've got the Von Karsteins as well. Vampire Counts, they're obviously a bad guy, could be a potential threat to your dwarfy good guys. Dryka over here, she's kind of supposed to be a good guy, I guess, but she kind of hates everyone, so we'll call her a bad guy. As for potential allies, Karaza Karak is a big one to the south. You've also got Zufbar here as dwarfs. They're going to be good guys, but they are a minor faction, so they're not going to be that useful. You might be able to confederate them. And of course, you're neighboring with the Empire over here, so potential allies, although these are minor factions here, Ostermark. So what you might hope for is that Karl Franz or Elspeth comes over here and takes these as an ally. Dryka, like I said, probably an enemy, but could maybe be an ally, so could go either way. Kislev up here as well, potential allies, good guy, major faction. Or how about some of Manfred von Karstein of the Vampire Counts? Now, he's a little bit of a good example of a rougher start because he doesn't really have any obvious friends around here. So you got Volkmar of the Empire to the west. That's going to be a good guy faction. No chance of friends with them. Tomb Kings, lore-wise, I think are supposed to hate Manfred, but I've seen him get alliances with them in campaigns, so it might be possible. Another major good guy nearby, though, Thorek here. He could be a potential big danger. You've also got Krokgar down here, another big good guy. Wurzag down here, also a bad guy, but kind of greenskins are a bit ambiguous, so could maybe be an ally or an enemy for Manfred. So you get the idea. Major, minor, good guys, bad guys, racism. That's total war diplomacy. Now let's talk about making friends and preventing wars. Let's say I'm playing as Miao Ying, because I am playing as Miao Ying, and I want to make friends with our broski Zhao Ming. So if we go to diplomacy, we can see all the Cathayan factions. So same race, should be easy to make friends, and there's all these little minor factions that we could also make some friends with, although eventually they will probably be gone. We'll maybe confederate them. So the only really useful one to make a relationship with is Zhao Ming, the other major faction. So we can see our current relations with them, neutral, 0, a completely fresh start here. Now, quite simply, if you want to build a relationship with a faction that'll turn into an alliance, you need to start somewhere, and that's going to be with a non-aggression pact or a trade agreement, or maybe both. This is going to start building your relations in a positive way, leading you to the next things: military access, defensive alliance, and eventually military alliance. And if you're big and powerful enough, you might be able to get a confederation eventually. So let's say we want to get this relationship going. We can see that there's only a -1 on trade, so that means it's close to happening. So if we propose that, but we can't quite get it, so if we balance the offer, it's going to cost us about $1,000. Not too much at all. We're going to go for it just so we can get that relationship going as quickly as possible. And as we can see here, our relations are now trending towards the positive, building our relationship. And the more positive things we can stack, the quicker we're going to grow this relationship. So we can do things like actions against their enemies. We can see they're at war with 2 minor factions here. So if I join one or both of these wars, it's going to have a positive effect on our relationship. Burning Nomads are miles away, so they're fine to declare war on. The other one is right next to me, so it's a bit more risky. If you're newer to the game, maybe don't do this, but the option is there. But do understand, even if all you have is a non-aggression and a trade agreement, your relationship will still grow positively. You don't need to do anything else to please them, but if you do, it'll make it go a bit faster. So we're making moves to build positive relations and hopefully eventually a military alliance. But be careful, just as you can please people, you can also piss them off. Let's say I went to get peace with this faction that I just declared war on behalf of Zhao Ming, and I'm also going to go ahead and get a non-aggression pact, balance it out for a bit of money. I'm going to go for that, and boom, we're now at peace with the faction we were at war with, but that faction is still at war with Zhao Ming, so he sees that as us making friends with his enemies, and he doesn't like that. Now we've got some negative relations, slowing down our progress towards getting that military alliance. It's not the end of the world, he doesn't hate us, he's not about to declare war on us, but it could go that way if we kept pissing him off and have more overall negative relations than positive ones. Also, something as simple as trespassing can bring your relations down, or agent actions like trying to assassinate their characters or steal their technology or something. So you have to think about all of your actions in relation to the faction you're trying to befriend. If you're making too many negative ones, you're going to slow things down. It's going to make it harder to make that buddy. So interactions with any faction, you have to think about who else it's going to affect. It's not just between you and them, there's allies and enemies involved. If we look here, I could get trade agreements with these two minor Cathay factions. Both are positive, both are going to be free money. Why not do these, right? It's a great idea. Well, not necessarily. If we look at the enemies of this faction, the Celestial Loyalists, they're at war with some Beastmen. This is a minor Beastmen faction, not too dangerous. We probably don't really need to worry about them, so we could go for that alliance. If we look at the other faction though, the Imperial Wardens, they're at war with three factions. Two of them minor factions to the north of the wall there, but one of them is the Puppets of Misrule. That is a major faction led by Village, a very dangerous faction for us to go to war with. They're over here, so we have to consider that when making this decision. So let's say we go for it, we're going to get trade and non-aggression, military access, all the good stuff with the Imperial Wardens, even though it's going to piss off those three enemy factions of theirs, including the Puppets of Misrule. And we'll see if we run over and discover the Puppets of Misrule's land, we'll be able to see them in diplomacy now. And what do you know, negative relations for us making friends with not only the Imperial Wardens, but also the Celestial Loyalists. But why is this a problem with Village? We don't want to make friends with him, he's a bad guy faction, we're a good guy faction, we're probably never going to make an alliance, why are we worried about this? Well, if we can control these relations, we can kind of determine when he comes to war with us, because eventually he probably will come at us at some point, it's just a matter of when. The more we piss him off, it's going to be sooner rather than later. And if we're at war with somebody else and we can't handle another war and he declares war on us, it's a problem. Whereas if we try not to piss him off, we can delay that war and maybe choose ourselves when to declare war on him, rather than waiting for him to do it to us. And again here, I've just got some more relations with the Celestial Loyalists, which has pissed him off even more. Which is actually kind of weird in this case. The eagle eyes among you may have spotted that he dislikes us for our treaties with Celestial Loyalists. But he's not actually at war with Celestial Loyalists. What the hell? Well, we can see he's got a minus 100 aversion to us as a Cathayan faction, so he probably just hates the Chinese, the racist bastard. But the point here is that it's hard to always predict the diplomatic relations and who it's going to piss off, because it's not always people's enemies that you can see. So you just have to do your best to make informed decisions about your diplomatic actions, because they likely affect more than just the two factions in diplomacy. Here's a few random examples. I'm being asked by a minor faction for a trade agreement and they'll give me a little bit of money. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? Positives for us, no downside. But if we look at who they're at war with, it's Avalon, one of the other nearby major factions that we're most likely going to want to befriend later on. This is going to set us back in making friends with them, so I'm going to say no to this trade agreement. Or this time, a major faction, Ivres, coming to us, asking us to join their war against another major faction, Nakari of Slanesh. Now, I've already got a defensive alliance with Ivres, so I've got a positive relationship. I don't need to do this to please them really, although it would get us to a military alliance faster if we wanted it. But we're going to get there anyway, and there's no downside to saying no to joining a war, and I'm already at war with another powerful major faction, the Dreadfleet. So I don't really want two wars with two major factions right now. I'm just going to finish up my one enemy, then maybe I'll go and help with Nakari. So don't throw yourself into too many unnecessary wars unless you're sure you can handle it. Playing as Gorbad here for the Greenskins, I'm going to get propositioned by a small Greenskins minor faction, the Crooked Moon Mutinous Gits. They're going to ask for a non-aggression pact, but they are at war with three major factions, the Crooked Moon Clan Moors and Clan Angrand. If any or all of these factions declare war on me right now, it could be disastrous because I'm fighting the Dwarfs, which is challenge enough. So we're going to say no. Also, they're a minor faction, unlikely to declare war on me, especially when they're at war with three major factions already. Or same campaign, a little bit further on here. Again, another non-aggression pact proposition from a minor faction. On the face of it, this might seem like, hey, why not? There's no downside to this. But when we see that they're at war with Clan Moors, who are neighboring me with a couple of provinces, and I'm currently up north trying to deal with the Dwarfs, it would be really bad bad for me if Clan Moors declared war on me right now. A war with them is probably inevitable, but the more we can delay it by not pissing Clan Moors off, the better. So some small interactions like this might seem like nothing, but they can be a bit of a trap. And one last pro tip, which is great for making relationships or making money, is if you take a settlement that another faction wants, like this one here, this is the faction that Zhao Ming was at war with earlier. Taking this settlement, I can see that he controls the rest of the province. He's got 2 of the places, I've just now got the 1. Now maybe if I had a lot of money, I could buy the other 2 off him, but what's going to make more sense in this early game situation is to offer to transfer the settlement to him, the Shrine of the Alchemist. I offer this to him, and what do you know? Alliance and everything else is now available. He really likes us for that one. So taking settlements you don't really want and giving them to someone else is a great way to make some friends or some money out there in the old world. Trading settlements is also a great way to get peace if you need it as well. Playing as Grimgor here, I've actually been at war with Zhao Ming, raising up half of his kingdom. He's still got a bit left, but let's say I'm bored of this now. I took one of his major settlements, Fuchao. This is a capital settlement, big settlement. It's only tier 2 and it's pretty beaten up, but I'm going to go to him and I'm going to offer it to him because we can't get peace with him at the moment. But if we go for peace and we offer to trade him Fuchao, you'll see that he is more than happy to oblige. We can then hit the balance offer button and that'll get us 44 grand, a pretty nice payday. So understand the power of taking settlements and giving them to people has a lot of great uses, and it's one of the most powerful tools for controlling diplomacy. So there we go, how to manage diplomacy. Pay attention to the major and minor factions, the good guys, bad guys, the same race factions. Build those positive actions to make allies, and watch out for those negative actions if you want to delay your enemies from coming after you, or potentially even prevent wars altogether if you don't piss people off, and it should help you survive much better in your campaigns. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, do check out the YouTube memberships. You can get exclusive videos over there, early access, or the Patreon. You can get into my Discord, different rewards, different places. Otherwise, I will see you in the future.